Hi, I'm Jamie Mayo. I'm the Assistive and Instructional Technology Coordinator for Washtenaw Intermediate School District and one of the coordinators of Tinkered Toy Box. We're modifying toys to be used with switches for students and patients. Today I'm going to show you how to modify the Starry Sky Galaxy toy. So I took it out of the box here carefully, being careful to preserve the box so that we can package it all back up in the box when we're done so the kid can have the enjoyment of unboxing his own toy. This is the toy here. It has two buttons on it, one button for color and one button that says LED. It's the white light. So I've taken it out of the box and I put fresh batteries in it so that we can test it. You always want to make sure that you test the toy first, so that you can make sure that it works properly before we start cutting wires and stuff. If it's not working now, we can return the toy to the store and get it replaced. Once we start breaking it open and cutting wires, we can't get any money back. We've voided the warranty. So make sure it works first. I put batteries in here. This one takes 3 AA batteries. And then when I hit the button, the light comes on. And if we were in a dark room here, you'd see that it casts the stars all over the ceiling and the walls here. That's the white light. And then there's also colored lights, and they change to different colors as well, slowly. And you can also keep both of them on at once. You can have the white light and the green light. The nice thing about this is we're going to interrupt the battery power right at the battery connection. So then our switch is going to turn on and off the power to the battery. And the cool thing about that is then someone can set this up for the student and push one of these buttons or both buttons, and when they hit their switch, it'll turn on either the colored or the white, and they'll be able to choose what they want to do. So they'll have both functions of the toy available to them with a little bit of help from an adult. So first thing I'm going to do, since I know that it works, I'm going to take the batteries out. Set those aside. And then there are 3 screws on the bottom here. I'm going to take those 3 screws out. I always keep a bowl or a jar or something to put all my extra bits in so that I don't lose them. They don't get lost on the floor or anything. 2. I've never done this toy before, so let's see how this one works. Oops. I gotta kind of push the buttons in, and then this collar kind of drops down and the electronic component slips out. So here I have both buttons, and then the LEDs on the top. So what I'm gonna do, I remember how I took it apart here. So I took it apart. The colored button is on this side. I'm just gonna leave a little tag on that side so I can remember how it goes together so we don't put the buttons on the wrong side. So our colors button is on this side and the LED or the white button is on this side. So I can make sure I put it back together the correct way. Set all that aside. Now I'm looking down here. We could solder onto the switch, but what I'd rather do is solder onto the battery connector, which is down here, so that then I'll have one switch that will control whichever button is depressed. So I think that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take this white part, just kind of lift it off. I didn't really have to do anything. We're just gonna wanna be really careful that we don't pull on any of these wires and disconnect them. So let me think. How do you think? I see both buttons connect to this battery connector here. So I think that's where I'm gonna start. So I'm gonna pull it off the battery connector there. I'm gonna connect those wires to my switch jack and then run a new wire from my switch jack back to this battery compartment. So then we're putting the switch in between, like our switch jack in between these switches and the battery compartment. So the battery power can't get to the switches without going through our switch. So let's do that. First, we use my soldering iron and heat up the solder on this tab that goes to the battery. You should just have to melt the solder and then it should pop loose. Being real careful not to get the solder on any of the wires or the plastics. We don't want to melt anything and break it. Okay, now I have these two loose wires that are going to go on my switch jack. I'm going to see if I can twist them together so they stay together. Maybe. I'm going to bring in, these are helping hands to just hold my switch jack in place. I want to put both of these wires, I want them on opposite connectors on my switch jack. So we have 3 connectors. We're going to do opposite connectors. So both of these will go on one and our new wire will go on the second one, the one opposite. I'm just going to get it hooked in there so it stays put. Sometimes use a screwdriver to get in there because my fingers are too big. Here's one. I'm going to solder that in place. Okay, and then the other one, we're going to take a new bit of wire. Just like that. And I'm going to strip both ends of the wire. So I have both ends have maybe a 1/4 inch or so that's bare. My wire's stranded, so I'm just going to wind those strands together, twist them so that they stay together. And then I'm going to go in that connector that's opposite the other one that we just did. And loop that one around as well. Keep all my wires together here. It's like threading a needle. Okay, I got it in. I'm gonna wait for my phone to stop ringing. I think it's done. Okay. Now I'm gonna solder the other connector onto the other side. So now I have, my connector has the wires that were connected to the battery are connected to one side, and then a new wire is connected to the other side. Okay, now this wire, the new wire, goes to the same battery connector that I took the two wires off of before. So I have to solder that on. And I gotta see. Takes sometimes a lot of hands. Okay. Then I'm gonna put this white piece back on very carefully so I don't pull on any wires. I'm looking underneath to make sure that nothing's pinched. I don't want to pinch any of the wires in there because then eventually they'll break and then the toy won't work. Looks good. Now this switch jack is going to go in the side of the toy right next to the button. So that for that, I have to drill a hole in the collar. Okay, so this top piece pops off. You can take that off very carefully. Don't lose any of the papers that are in there. And then that lets the collar just slide off. Okay. So this is on the white light side. So I want to make sure that I am drilling it on the right side, on the correct side. And I'm going to put it down here. And I'm also going to put it as low as I can because it's going to be tricky getting this all back together with the connector in the way, I think. So I'm going to drill it as low as I can, but I don't want the connector to interfere with this lip here. So that lip is where this base piece has to sit inside this lip. So we want to make sure that everything's going to fit together in there, right? So move that away. Just use a drill and drill a little hole. Oops, drilled through the table. Then you want to look, and if there's any plastic stuck in there, you can use a utility knife to clean it out, or I have this little reamer that cuts all the plastic out. Works quite nice. And that'll just make sure that your switch jack can seat in there real nicely and look clean and finished. Okay, now the tricky part. Let's see how this goes back together. So on your switch jack, there's a little nut that has to come off. Take that off and set it aside. You have to kind of push the buttons to get the collar to go in. There's one side. Oh, it's tricky. There we go. Then put this nut on. Yeah, I'm holding on the inside so it'll not spin, and then tighten the nut on the outside. Okay, it feels like it is pretty secure. It's not wiggling around in there, so I think we're good there. And I can see that all my wires are still connected, so that's good too. I have to push in the buttons. There's one, there's the other. They're working okay. Okay, now I'm gonna put the, uh-oh, I have to put the plastic thing on. You guys, why didn't you stop me? Okay. That in, I hope. This is how we do a toy for the first time, right? Trial and error. Oops, should have put this on from the beginning. Just sliding it past that jack. There we go. Okay. Now let's put them back in. These switches rotate up, so you might have to pull them back down and they kind of pop into place. There's one. Oh, this one rotated. There we go. I feel like this one is kind of in far, so I'm gonna pop it back out. Yeah, it came out of its little slot in there, so open it back up, slip it right down in its slot. Now let's check on this side. How'd this side do? Same thing. Just need it to stay down in that little slot. All right, now we've got two that feel like they're solid. They're right where they need to be. My switch jack is there. Now I'm going to put my screws back in. Now pop my battery compartment out. My batteries in. Take that off. There's kind of a big hole in my table now. My screws fell out. I'll figure those out in a minute. Okay, that's fine. And this lid goes on here. And then you have a button. This is like the buttons that we're providing for students to use with the toys. You'll plug into the switch jack, and then you push the button that you want to turn on, and when you hit the button, the light comes on. And push the other button, and the light comes on. Now I'm noticing I have them mixed up. This is the color button, and this is the white, the LED button. But look, it's colors. No good. So I should have marked it with my little paper before I took the whole thing apart. But it's working, it's just backwards. So the great thing about this is maybe the child's parents set this up with the white light first and they can play with it. And then if they get bored of that, then they can switch over to the colored lights and they can play with that too. And they can practice with hitting it quickly, or they can practice with press and hold it down until it changes to blue. And then they would hold it until it changes to blue. And that's a nice switch skill to learn, how to press and hold the switch until a certain thing happens. Oh, there it's blue, then you stop, right? So they can play with that. The other nice thing I like about this toy is you can pop this off and you could replace these papers with whatever you want to put in there. If they have a favorite animal, you could put papers in here with that animal printed on the side, so when they hit the button they'll see that animal's silhouette showing. Or if you want to put some beads in here or marbles, something like that, that would the light would shine off of, could be kind of cool. So there's some different options for that too. The last thing to do is make sure that you sign the tag that goes with your toy. So then when your student gets the toy, they'll be able to look at the tag and say, oh, look who made this toy for me. And that's kind of cool that they know that there was one person that worked on that for them. And then you'll package all of this back up into the original box and we'll give it to the student in the original box. So I'm going to flip all this around so that we have the white light and the colors light on the opposite sides, but other than that, it's all done. Thank you.